Views and content expressed in the following program are not representative of ONTV or the Board of Directors. ONTV and its Board of Directors do not endorse the views, thoughts, or content of the following program.
Welcome to Political Talk with Todd Schleiger, Dave Lillis. I'm John DeSanto. We're going to sit down and have a little roundtable discussion today regarding our tax dollars in the state of Michigan, how they're being funded, and what's going on and why it's not making it to our schools, to our roads, and to you, the Michigan public. Todd?
Well, first off, there's all kinds of different taxes here in Michigan. Michigan collects altogether with all its taxes combined, and this is going to shock you, $131.7 billion.
They collect $131.7 billion. What's our state budget?
This year it's 52.7
billion. So we collect 3 times more than we're budgeted for.
No. They also, if you go to US revenue.gov,
okay,
which is a federal site, you can look up any state budget you want on all their taxes combined. But if you go on there, it states on there $131.7 billion. Now that's up nearly $5 billion from the previous year. But on that budget, it states $79.9 billion money owed by the people of Michigan. So you're talking roughly $80 billion. I figure it's close enough to say $80 billion. Now, if we owe $80 billion, I'd like to know where they're spending it. Now, some people will tell you it's the bonds that they take out to fix our roads, to build our schools, which is probably what it is. But it's also there to help fund, believe it or not, insurance companies, hospitals, and any other public entity that the people need funding in. That leaves the 52.7 billion that is actually our budget. But what I don't understand is if they're spending all this money on our roads, why are they still full of potholes?
The same ones that have been there for 12 years.
Yeah, the asphalt jumps right back out of them, and I've seen some where you can stand in and they're up past your knees.
One thing I would like to ask the two of you and the viewing public, and I've asked this when I've campaigned, when was the last time you paid taxes? Most people tell me, let's see, last year I paid taxes.
I would tell you every week.
Well, the thing is, you didn't pay them. They took them.
That's true.
If the system were turned around and you got your paycheck, and the rule of thumb is 33 1/3% goes to taxes. If you had to pay that at the window every week, how long would it take you before you wonder, where's this money going? I pay it every week, and they say, thank you very much. Just make sure you're on time next week. How long will it take before you want to know, I'm not seeing anything for this money. I'm just handing it over. By them taking it, you look at your paycheck, and this is common with most people. They look at what they got, and this is what I live on. That part over to the right, they might only look at it once a year. But they're taking an enormous amount of money. Think about what you could do with that money. Okay, that's one point. The other point is think of what they're doing with that money.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
We know what they're supposed to be doing with their tax dollars, but they can't be doing it because, look, we have failing schools in Michigan. Our schools
failing
are ranked
districts, not even schools. Entire districts are falling apart.
Infrastructure
the
that
state
is outdated. Detroit is outdated well over 100 years in their pipelines
not
and electrical.
Just Detroit. It's the
Right,
entire state.
I'm just saying, the thing was, when I first started running, they knew Detroit was in trouble then. This is back in the 90s. And up to, I would say, since Mike Duggan has taken over, they haven't really done a thing. But the tax money kept coming in and coming in. Where'd it go? Even their garbage pickup is gone. and they had to pay for that out of their pocket. Yet their taxes didn't go down, they actually went up. So the expense of Detroit went down, and the people got to pay for it.
And I beg to differ with you on this one.
Okay.
And I'll use your exact example, Detroit. You said the expense of Detroit, the cost of Detroit itself went down.
No. I said that they stopped paying for the trash pickup, and the people had to take that on. But that amount of tax was still taken out.
Well, I
by
understand
Detroit.
that. But even though the population of Detroit has gone down, you would think the expense of the city itself would go down somewhat with the population. The population is right around, I'm going to say, between 600,000 and 700,000 right now. I don't have an exact number, but I know it's right in
What was the
there.
last census? Do you recall?
2010.
No. What was the population?
It's between 600 and
Yeah, it was
700,000.
about 712,000, 715,000 people.
It was at one point 1.2.
No, 1.5 at one time.
Well,
Detroit
I
was
think-
number 3. And then they dropped below Philadelphia to number 4.
Yeah, but you're
Dave?
talking 40 years ago.
Todd, I was a promotions and marketing director for CBS Radio for years. My job was to understand the demographics of the Detroit area. At one time, we had 5.8 million people in the Metro Detroit area.
Yeah, that's all suburbs and
And
everything else.
we were the 7th largest market in the U.S. In a span of 6 years, we dropped from number 7 to number 12 nationally in the size of the market. And the state of Michigan's population didn't change much, maybe about 600,000 or 700,000 people. Everybody moved out of that area. Now they're trying to do a lot of this stuff, building infrastructure in the downtown area of the city of Detroit to attract people to move back to the city. The problem is the tax dollars that you get for the state of Michigan that go into Detroit, they're not going to the schools. They're not going to the roads. They're going to get people into the city, have a good time, and then get out of the city. I used to work in the city, and I lived outside the city. That right side column that I had was another 1.5% of my income went to the city of Detroit as an income tax for the city that I didn't have a say in any way, shape, or form. It was just given to them gratuitously because I worked from outside the city and came into the city to have a
I
job.
remember that,
And,
yes.
and I mean, they still take that one column at 1.5%.
And they still do. They don't. They're not going to give that money back. Are you kidding me?
Here's what's happened. Our taxes have consistently gone up over the last couple of decades. The problem is the money's not going where it should be going. They're putting it into administrative costs. These are supposed to be intelligent people that are leading these organizations. I mean, back when you had Governor Snyder running for his second term and Gary Showers running, there was a commercial that came out. Governor Snyder took $1 billion, for Gary Showers, it was Governor Snyder took $1 billion out of our schools. For the other one, it was Governor Snyder put $1 billion into the school. The sad part about that two commercials, they were both accurate.
Yeah.
Because what Snyder did is he pulled $1 billion out of our kids' classrooms and put it into the administrative half of the schools. It didn't change the situation. It didn't help our teachers, and it definitely didn't help our students.
Put on a governor's hat for a moment.
Okay.
And let me ask you this. How would you adjust that $1 billion going both ways? It's a shell game. We all know it's a shell game. We're going to take that because wealth is not won or lost. It's just moved from point A to point B to point C.
You want an honest answer on what I would do on this situation?
Be refreshing.
First off, I would separate and create one person in charge of our school districts, of the Department of Education. Separate it from the Department of Education and the Department of Insurance. That one person would answer for what's going on in our schools. Because after all, when you have a chain of command, there's always one person at the top that's supposed to know what's going on. Second of all, these administrators that are in there, school superintendents, they'd be held accountable as well. If your school district is failing, well, you have to have punitive damages, or I should say punitive actions. If you're not going to do the job, then you're going to be removed. They are overpaying our school superintendents, big time. They're making, and I don't care if somebody makes 6 digits. I would wish everybody in Michigan could have a 6-digit salary, but it ain't going to happen. For what our school districts are doing, they still don't, they're not really doing nothing. All they're doing is sitting at tables, much like we are, and discussing things. They're not really putting anything to it. The ones that are really doing the work are the principals of the schools, talking it over with school boards and doing all this. The money's going to administrative costs. It needs to go to our kids. It needs to go to our classrooms. It needs to go to our teachers, where the teachers can stop taking money out of their paychecks to buy supplies for their classrooms. Now, granted, that's more on the elementary side of K through 12, but it's still where the most money is going. We need to put the money towards our students. I could care less about the administrative. As far as I'm concerned, they could cut all administrative offices down in size and make it worthwhile so that our students are getting a good education. Michigan's ranked 39th in the nation. That's appalling. If I was governor, like you said, putting on the governor's hat, after changing the entire system, I would tell you this. I would just about guarantee within my 4 years, I can bring Michigan up to at least number 20, if not higher, in the nation.
Okay. Now, same governor's hat. How do you take those funds that are supposed to be for the schools, for the infrastructure, and how do you take those funds and distribute them evenly, not only for the Detroit area, but outstate?
I might be better.
Outstate?
Yeah, like everything, like your Sault Ste. Marie's, your Battle Creek, your Grand Rapids.
Oh, you mean within the state?
Yeah, but outstate, when I say there's the city of Detroit and then there's outstate, there's everything outside of it.
First of all, I think, and this is kind of a broad statement, that I don't believe people have a problem paying taxes if they get their money's worth. They get return on investment.
Is it a matter of getting a return on their investment, or should we say getting their money's worth?
You could say both, actually, but the return on investment is getting your money's worth, too. It's semantics. But
yeah, you're playing a game there.
The point is that there's no accountability. The money is just spent, yet they can't determine exactly where it goes. Now, if you've run a business, you have to know exactly where all that money is gone. And you can tell, okay, this was a bad expenditure, this was a good one, this one, and you see what you get in return on it. What we had talked about in several other shows was how much money was spent. And I'll bring up an example that we had brought up before. The new Senate office building that Randy Richardville bought, that was $158 million. When all was said and done, it was 314 or 315 billion. Million. And Randy Richardville was working for that person. Now, the reason I say that was because when I spoke with Mr. Marlowe about that, I said, well, you know, that's $158 million. That's a lot of money. Why do you need a new Senate office building? Well, the windows are leaking and there's some mold in there. Yet we have Detroit schools where the kids have to wear their coats, where there's rats in the hallway, where the pipes are leaking. Now, those pipes, that's dangerous. That's contaminated water. That was okay. But it was more important for you to spend that money on a Senate office building where you, and if you want to call them administrators, I guess you could, thought more of yourself than what your purpose was. If I was governor, I want to see line by line. Now, you're not going to get it to the penny, obviously, but right now, you're not getting anything. You just see, what's the budget? 15 billion now, and 2 billion of that is still questionable yet. Just because he signed it in on paper, funny money on paper and actual funds are two different things.
Here's the other reason that our schools are failing that I failed to touch on and I haven't heard you go near.
I'll get to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will eventually.
It is, but I'll get to it.
A major problem why we have schools like I said on the other show, we have 38 schools closing in Michigan, possible closings, let me put it that way. 25 of them are in predominantly black communities, between Detroit, Flint, Benton Harbor, and St. Joe's. Here's part of that reason that I can tell you exactly what's wrong with it. And this is pointing exactly to the administrative costs. You have schools, they're all public schools that I'm talking about. They should all be receiving the same amount of money per child, okay? But they're not. You have affluent schools, and I don't have exact numbers for this, but I can guarantee you every student in Lake Orion is receiving at least $10,000 per student. You go over to Pontiac, which is just down the road, 10 miles maybe. They're receiving $6,800 per student. Go to Boyne City. Now, this is a smaller community up there. They're only receiving $7,300, but they're doing a heck of a lot better than Pontiac, okay? That's because they have actually bright people, and I shouldn't say that way,
Well, they've
No,
got a
running the
enlightened-
schools.
No, it
And
is
if you've got this many
community-based.
differences
exactly.
between these schools, you're going to have failures because look, the teachers aren't getting paid as much. Administratives getting paid almost the exact amount because of the fact they're governed by the state.
Do you know what is a terrible thing with that? And I've heard this in campaigning. I've heard this from politicians. Is that and actually it was John Engler who started that. He had designated certain areas for a certain amount of education funding, and other areas affluent to get them ready for college. Now this was verified by Michigan State University, his alma mater, and they said it was economic
Suicide.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, politicians will, on both sides, advocate for their area. And I heard politicians say, well, we need to keep those people down there. Now, here's something that you must understand.
To me, that sounds like a racial slur.
It is a racial slur. That's exactly what it was. And the thing was that everybody must have an equal chance
in order
an
to
equal
prosper.
education, because when they go out into the world, they need to return on investment. They need to give into society, not take out. But if their possibilities are not there, the chances of them doing that are much lower. Whereas in an affluent area, that could still happen, but not to the same degree. Now, so they say, well, oh, don't worry about them. They're over there and they're over there. This is wrong, because if they have that education, that gives them an equal opportunity. Now, again,
Now
with
you're
the
crossing into voucher
education-
area here too.
This
okay,
is
wait a minute. What
the
they've
nice
done,
warm shoes.
they've turned that into for-profit.
Yes, they
A
have.
voucher for profit and an education system are two different things. And when you go into making money off the schools, then the quality of education in those affluent areas may not be as good. Because
Well, no,
now
because
it's
their big
for-profit.
concern is to make money.
Make money. Whereas the concern before, now I grew up in Boyne City, and the
That's why I
objective,
use that area.
thank you. The objective was for us to be educated at the highest level. And they did that. Now, Lake Orion is also very good at that. They focus. These are our kids. This is our community. These schools are ours. When the parents go out there and they support their kids,
But see, here's where the voucher system comes in that Betsy DeVos was talking about, and I believe Trump is.
Yep.
okay?
Okay, here's the problem, and this is my eyes. You correct me if I'm wrong on this. If you bring the voucher system in, it's a great thing to some
For some.
extent. Okay, but here's what happens with the voucher system. Yes, you can take your child and go to any school you want in Michigan, but here's always the possibility which will happen. Mark my words on this. And I'm going to use Lake Orion as an example, and I'll throw Pontiac and Madison Heights in there, just to throw some cities in there. All right, everybody decides Lake Orion's the best school that they want to go to, so they're going to start driving their kids up here. Okay, and I don't actually know how many students Lake Orion can hold, but we'll say a round figure of 3,000. Okay, so that year with these vouchers, you end up with 3,100. Now, Lake Orion's going to say, well, we'll take them. They can squeeze 100 kids in. Not that they want to, but they will because it's money. What happens from them doing that? All these other kids that came in from other communities, their schools just declined because they took the money out of their community.
Yeah, once again, it's
What's
the
going to
shell
happen
game.
the next year? Lake Orion's going to say, hey, we're predicting we're going to have 3,500 students next year. So what are they going to do? They're going to build. Okay? That next year, maybe they hit their 3,500. Those other 400 students came from other communities that are deteriorating. This is why I don't believe in the vouchers.
And
Doesn't
hold
that
on,
also
gentlemen.
say that if they build, the people of this community will pay the taxes and the freight on that school?
That's exactly what happens.
The families that are in the outstretched area. Now, the other question is, and this one has never been clearly answered because all I've heard is, oh, the voucher system is the best, but you haven't gone into detail. Is there a cap? Let's take Lake Orion as, again, and we're using this because, you know,
We live in
people
Lake
out there.
Orion. We're just
We're in
using it
that
as an
house.
example. No fact here.
Is there a cap that the school can say, look, we can't take any more? And if that be the case, where does the priority for Lake Orion students come in? Could it be that, oh, well, maybe some Lake Orion students, maybe we can't take them in order to take these others?
They can't do that with the voucher system.
Now, hold on, gentlemen, one other thing.
I don't know.
I live in Canton.
Mm-hmm.
Canton, Plymouth, and Plymouth-Salem are on the same campus. You go to Canton, you go to Plymouth, I go to Salem. We can all have classes in the same school and still represent different schools.
Yes.
So, we're all on the football teams of our chosen schools. You can wear your red and blue, white. You can wear your blue and white, and I can wear mine. And we show up, and we're in the same classrooms. So I can understand how this could work. But what you'll end up doing is needing to take the schools from X, Y, and Z, putting them in the same campus, expanding it, and having it so that one teacher is now teaching 3 different cities' students.
But here's the downside that I started to say. Okay, we're now up to 3,500 students for Lake Orion. 500 of these students are from out of Lake Orion.
Exactly.
Lake Orion Schools is going to come to its community and say they need more money. They're not going to hit the outside community that the students are coming in from. They got their vouchers. They're going to hit our community of Lake Orion
For that 1% mill.
for that 1% mill.
Okay, I got a question. With
And
the
we will
voucher
never
system,
recruit.
No.
now, one of the reasons I moved here, because the community aspect that I had in Boyne City, I mean, the school belonged to the people and the people belonged to the school. And we have that here in Lake Orion.
Yes, we do.
And that's what sets us apart. This is a family-oriented system. And I don't know if yours feels that way. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But here, it's Lake Orion schools. If you want to call them dragons and dragonettes, that's fine. But
Right.
they're Lake Orion. Now, what's going to
School
happen?
spirit.
Well, it's not just...
Community spirit.
Yes.
It's a community spirit.
School community spirit.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
and,
you
and
bring
that's
in that
extremely
voucher.
important.
You bring in those vouchers, and you're going to
But
deteriorate
my question is, if these vouchers and that school for profit, who profits?
the corporation that's formed from
Yeah.
these schools, not the communities. They may put some of it in there, but I guarantee you what happens. Administrative.
Can you explain that? Because I've heard of it, but I don't want to say anything because I'm not sure of what I'm saying.
When you look at your schools that are for profit, and forgive me for I'm not even going to use names because I don't want to affect anybody's favorite schools or put anybody down. But if
School X.
School X is a private school, their tuition goes up 10%. They're telling the parents, we want to do this for the school. They have a set dollar amount. The school gets the money. They do what they say they're going to do to the parents, because private schools are very good for this. They do most of the time keep their words.
In what way?
With their tuition paying parents. If they say that we're going to do this to bring laptops to every student, they do it. Okay? But if there's a surplus, you would think they would save it. But instead, raises start coming out. This is where I'm thinking our schools for profit are going to go. This is why I believe in our public schools. I'm a strong affiliate for a strong advocate for public schools. And if the money is applied properly to our public schools, the communities will take pride in their school. Students won't want to go someplace else because they have a fair opportunity no matter what school they go to. I would love to bring Michigan up into the top 5 school in the nation.
But when you look
without raising taxes.
When you look at the politicians who, I'm worried about me, I'm worried about staying in office, so I will say and do whatever I got to do to stay in there. The one thing people have to understand is as these guys are doing this, your life is going backward because they're ignoring it. For example, with the healthcare issue.
It's for their job security.
Yeah, and the only
It's
reason I'm bringing
their
up the
job
healthcare
security.
issue is if you could have fixed this back in 2010 and you chose not to, then all of us were left behind while you guys played a game. And on that note,
Well, maybe I should run for office then, and I'll bring accountability, equality, and
I
integrity
don't
to
think
Michigan.
that's not a bad idea.
Well, I mean, if you were to run for office, what would you run for?
The only job that can get the job done would more than likely be governor. We got to wrap this up, and that's for another show. But
So-
I just got angry. I
We
apologize for that, but I actually got angry over this.
We are not trying to tell you what to think. We are just asking you to think, to look at these things and think for yourself. Ask questions. And the more we ask questions, the more we'll see what's in our favor and what's working for us. You're the voter. You're the ones that determine what needs to be done, not somebody who comes down from Lansing and tells you that they're taking care of you.
For David Lillis, for Todd Schleiger, I'm John DeSanto. Thank you again for checking in with us. This is Political Talks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Views and content expressed in the previous program are not representative of ONTV or the Board of Directors. ONTV and its Board of Directors do not endorse the views, thoughts, or content of the previous program.